We are ready.
Yeah, I'm not presenting this. I'm just going to read it.
Oh, that's
All
good.
right.
All right.
Good afternoon to everyone who could join us in Hampton Roads and those who cannot, welcome virtually. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Virginia Coastal Resilience Master Planning Framework Technical Advisory Committee. And I'm going to read a quick preamble so that we're all situated together, understand the ground rules. And for those of you who are virtual, we'll set out some ground rules for you on participation. Please let me take a moment to review how this meeting will work. We want to allow for participation by subcommittee members, staff, and members of the public who wish to comment in person or by electronic means. It is the policy of the Technical Advisory Committee and subcommittees adopted June 22nd, 2021 by the TAC that individual technical advisory committees and subcommittee members may participate in meetings of the technical advisory committees or subcommittees by electronic means as permitted by Virginia Code. However, it is essential that we are able to manage the conversation effectively. While the meeting will be open for subcommittee members to comment, due to the challenges associated with a partial electronic meeting, we want to allow members of the public to be heard. If you would like to make a comment, please do so in the chat box. Our staff will be monitoring the chat box and let us know when someone has submitted a comment. We will address your comments as time allows. If you are joining us here in person, thank you, and would like to comment, we'll open the floor to public comment specified in the meeting agenda. We'll flash that in a moment. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded. Again, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available to the public through the SNR website. The comments in the chat room will also be preserved as a matter of public record. Official minutes of this meeting will be drafted and posted in accordance with regular procedures. The minutes will also include the type of electronic communications means by which the electronic portion of this meeting is being held. Today, the platform we are using is WebEx. In the event that a disruption occurs, participants should contact the following phone number. Please give your phone number.
703-994-8781. Call or text that.
Okay, one more time.
703-994-8781.
Thank you, Jeff. If there is any interruption in the broadcast, the meeting will be suspended until we get access restored. Jeff, would you please conduct a roll call?
Yes, sir. So I understand that we have some folks there in person that I captured at the beginning here for the formalities, but I will just straight down, just read the list. Starting with obviously our chair, Mr. Krabs here. Just everyone just say present, and I'll note you here. If not, I'll note you as absent. So Tom?
Present.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Whitney Catchmark. I know Whitney's there. If you want to speak in the Tom.
She is present. I'm sorry, I'll relay.
Awesome, no worries. Thanks, Whitney, again for hosting this event. Admiral Craig Quigley.
Present.
Awesome. Mr. Tom Emmerich with the Army Corps. Awesome. Dr. Jessica Whitehead with ICAR. Mr. Dylan Taylor, I believe, is here virtually. Can you hear us fine?
Yeah, did you catch that? I'm present.
Great. Yeah, I already knew that most folks were there. Thanks, Dylan. Dr. Steve Murray or Jason L. Kuby. All right. I do know that Mr. Dave Paler, Director of DEQ, and Sharon Baxter are both attending Delegate Taylor Murphy's funeral. So they will not be here. We thank the former delegate for all his work of the environment here in Virginia. Elaine Mail with Accomack Northampton PDC or Jessica Steelman. Right. Captain Sam Stevens with the Coast Guard, Sector Hampton Roads. Right. And I believe, Kevin, are you here? Kevin Dubois?
Present.
All right. Great. Well, we do not have a physical in-person quorum. That is okay. So we just bear in mind, folks, that we won't be taking a vote on anything here, but as I'll bring up the agenda in a second, we're looking to just have a very kind of roll up our sleeves, if you will, get down to finishing up this model and guidance document for funding opportunities and federal partners. So I don't see anyone else on the attendee list in terms of our advisors who have been awesome in their great work contributing to this subcommittee. I don't believe that Admiral Phillips is here. Actually, excuse me, Jason Altubi is here. Let me bring him in. Hey, Jason, sorry I missed you. I believe you're joining us virtually. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct. Good
Awesome.
afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, sir, for taking time. We've got you accounted for. But as I noted just a second ago, no other advisors here. I believe members of the Dewberry team, we have Emily Sokol. Thanks again, Emily, for taking notes for us. Dr. Brian Baden with Dewberry is present. I don't believe we have anyone from DCR, Matt or Connor or Admiral Phillips, Secretary's office. I will add that we have Emily Gore joining us from NAVFAC Mid-Atlantic. Emily, welcome. And I also believe Susan Lang is attending in person. Is that correct?
Susan is, yes.
Okay. And Emily, if you don't mind, I know you're on the phone, but could you send me your name, position, and then email? My email is jefferson.flood, FLOD, @deq.virginia.gov. So just we have you for the attendee list. I appreciate y'all taking time. So I believe we're good, Tom, to proceed. I can share the agenda if you'd like.
Fantastic. Jeff, let me just finish the end of the preamble here. There's a little bit more to go and we'll get underway. I apologize for the delayed start time. Take responsibility for it as well. Okay, I want to explain further how we'll handle participation by subcommittee members, staff, and the public. Everyone attending electronically except the individual presenting materials for an agenda item will be muted. Once the presentation is completed, subcommittee members and only subcommittee members attending remotely will be unmuted for discussion and may indicate their desire to comment by raising their hand or commenting in the chat box. Staff will assist in ensuring, Jeff will assist in ensuring subcommittee members are recognized when they have questions or comments. Members of the public will be able to ask questions in person and via electronic means and may provide input by using the chat box function only. So if you're a public member today with us, please use that chat box to make your voice heard. As time allows, we will respond to those questions and comments in person and in the chat function. Public comment will be taken from those who signed up in advance during the last 30 minutes of the meeting, both in person and by electronic means. And now we'll proceed with the business of the subcommittee as outlined in the agenda. And Jeff, if you'd please show that agenda.
Yep, bring it up right now. Presenter, giving it back to me, giving myself the power. All right, should be right there. All right, are y'all seeing that Word document? Do I need to enlarge it?
We see, no, we're seeing a different Word document. It might be, it's because of my screen is showing up there, Jeff, not yours. And I can change that.
I see an agenda.
We're now seeing it.
Okay, cool. A little bit of delay. Thanks for y'all for your patience here. All right. So the Word doc. So we've done the welcome, done the FOIA preamble, done the roll call. So time for you, Tom, to provide some chair updates. And I can also actually flip to that TAC presentation if you'd like me to.
Yeah, let's do that. And as Jeff explained coming in today, we want to shape the final product that we're going to deliver to the master plan. And I'd like to walk you through the brief I gave to the TAC last week, and I'll keep it brief, just to orient anybody who wasn't there, and I think to make sure that we're all on the same page as we move out here.
It's loading right now. It just takes a second, so keep talking.
All right. Before I do that, Brian or anyone from Dewberry, if you'd like to give us an update while we load up, that is welcome.
I can just give a short update. We're just in the process of, well, we're waiting on comments on our initial draft of the Coastal Master Plan and working on some intermediate revisions and the web application, and also just working through delivering the
Hey,
last.
Brian, we're having trouble hearing you here. Can you hold on just a moment? Where's that clip?
Oops. There we go. Brian's muted. Let me see if I can unmute him, if that might help.
So we're having trouble hearing Brian here, Jeff. So what I'm trying to do is put it.
You were muted and I unmuted you, Brian. Can you hear
Yeah,
us?
no, I think, I don't know if it's just on the end of the folks in the room where,
Brian, it's on our side, and for everybody in the room, it is on our side because it's
Okay.
only coming through the computer and not our whole system.
sure, I understand that, yeah. Yeah, just, I'll just briefly state we had delivered our full draft of the Coastal Master Plan, I guess 90% draft is what it was called, to the state. We're waiting on comments, which will come in the end of this week, and then progressing through, working through some of the other deliverables that are still outstanding, from the website progression to, just deliver the finance alignment piece, and then some of the other last technical parts of the study. So, and then we're looking forward to the next TAC meeting to get some input and hear from all the subcommittees on all that. And then there's also been some other underserved community outreach meetings occurring in the last few weeks, mostly in Hampton Roads. But that's about it right now. It's relatively quiet compared to a couple months ago. And of course, addressing some comments and feedback on our impact assessment and that product as it gets ready to be integrated into the final full draft of the master plan.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat some of that for those of us who are in the room. Unfortunately, our audio is not working well enough for everybody to hear that in here. So you correct me if I'm wrong anywhere, but you delivered a full draft up to the state, and we've got the you're receiving feedback from your impact assessments, and for those on the subcommittee who responded to Brian's team's input, thanks for your feedback on that directly to Dewberry. And we've got a TAC subcommittee meeting coming up in October for some final feedback. And we will have hang on, I'm trying to fix our problem at the same time I'm talking here.
Sorry, but this might work.
Yeah. We still have some opportunity to provide you the feedback that we hope to focus today and deliver in the next couple of days. Is that correct?
Sorry, Tom, I didn't catch that last piece. What was it again?
So we're hoping, as we discussed at the TAC meeting, and we are planning to get you a bit more product that will be explained as I go over the brief that I gave. And as soon as we put the final focus on that, we intend to produce it in the next week and deliver it before the next TAC meeting. And you'll be able to receive that, correct?
That's correct, yes, along
Excellent.
with all the other ones for sure.
That's good news. That was an affirmative from him.
All right.
Kevin?
Thank you.
So Tom, what in the current version of the master plan deals with the work that our subcommittee has done? Is there something that we should be?
For that, Brian?
I did not hear the full question, only parts of it.
The good news is we can hear you now. That's good.
Good.
So the point of the evaluation subcommittee, there was like 50 pages of written text about the methodology and the criteria for evaluating projects. So clearly that information is intended to be part of the master plan document. So to my knowledge, I have not seen any portion of the master plan that has dealt with the issues that we've been talking about here at the Federal Partners Subcommittee. So I just want to make sure I'm not missing something that I'm supposed to be reviewing. And if there's anything written that summarizes the subcommittee's work to date. So I just want to make sure that, if this thing is due in a week or two, that we're reviewing what we need to review. I haven't seen anything. I just want to make sure I'm not missing.
At present, there is nothing in the master plan draft document that summarizes the work of the subcommittees. That is to be determined after these recommendations come in from each of the subcommittees on how to best integrate that into the document moving forward. I'd have to defer to the state on any other response to your question.
Okay. So I guess we're going to talk about timelines at some point. Okay.
Has there been a date determined for the next TAC? Jeff, have you seen anything?
I think it's first 2 weeks of October. I've got that week of I guess Monday the 4th that week, and then the following one, just as sort of a general placeholder to be prepared.
Yep.
But I've not seen anything specifically, or due to poll for that matter.
Yep. And the next communication, Kevin, is in the next TAC, that's our last chance to have something on the board to say, hey, this is what we want you to put in.
In finalized form, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Questions for Brian? All right. Thank you, Brian. All right, moving along. The last TAC was held on September 2nd. If you're unable to attend, this is the brief that I provided, and I'm doing this to one, give you visibility if you did not see it, and two, just to shape what I briefed to the TAC on where our focus is and get us on the right footing for a deliverable. I covered the purpose statement and how we came to that, just to give a refresh on where we were. Emphasizing the awareness, alignment, strategy, investment, and model. It's Jeff, next slide, please. I covered the lines of effort that we've been working on. And the one that is in green, Kevin, is to reflect the input that we gave from the jailers products, and I briefed that.
So
Go back to that last slide, please, Jeff.
So my question is that a complete list or just the Navy projects that were submitted by the Hampton Roads Supply?
I took your product and handed that over.
Okay.
I don't know what's been reflected from that. I don't know what was included from that list, but I took what you had delivered to us and delivered it to Dewberry via the TAC.
And maybe I'll ask the group, but what I understood from the TAC was Carl Hirschner said he had not seen the list. So we don't know if those projects are on the list or not on the list. Was that everyone else's understanding?
Yeah, that's a question we should have answered.
So, sorry. Which list? You mean the priority list versus the later low priority list?
The priority list, right, that has all the projects on it.
Because, so we got follow-up email from Dewberry. It was for Norfolk, and they were asking for different additional information. And one of the projects was the PDC put in the projects from the JLUs. And so you could kind of tell that some of them made the list, but a lot of them got shifted to capacity.
Right?
But
Which
yeah.
is okay, right?
Right.
Their
but
capacity.
My understanding is that the CIPLO only submitted Navy projects, not all of DOD, just Navy. So that's why you might have seen the Norfolk, Virginia Beach JLUs projects, but I don't know about any of the others for any of the other services within DOD. And that's what I've been talking about for months is how do we know that all of the DOD projects are being considered?
Did they enter them with the online form?
Who is the they?
Anybody from the Navy, CIPLO, whoever you were, said they made a list.
I don't know how they got in, whether it was Joe Howell who did it but my understanding is from Joe, since he is the CIPLO for the Navy, that they only submitted Navy projects, not all of DOD. And there was some, I think just some internal miscommunication because Joe was very sensitive to the fact that he was representing Admiral Rock. Admiral Rock is the commander, Navy region Mid-Atlantic. And so he didn't feel in his capacity representing the Admiral that he could advocate for projects outside the Navy. And I said, well, the Admiral, as the SNRMA, is also the designated agent for the Chesapeake Bay program, which covers all the services. And so how are we representing those? And he said, I don't know, but I didn't submit them. So
They were
talking to
submitted.
Tom, I said, hey, there seems to be this disconnect. And so I had made a list back in August of all the different potential JLUs projects for the Department of Defense, not just the Navy. And then Tom says he handed it to Dewberry, but I don't know if they
Through the
entered
tag.
it into the survey framework.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you say list, I feel like the only thing that they were really processing was when someone entered information in through the portal that they wanted them to use.
Right, and that's my concern is that all those projects have not been represented in the list.
I think it's very likely, but there's a whole bunch of those on different lists, right?
Right,
Because they wouldn't take data any other way.
Right, but getting back to what was said at the TAC was one of the big concerns was if it didn't get on the list or if it was miscategorized or it didn't receive the criteria or the priority that the sponsors felt was appropriate. If this document doesn't carry on beyond this administration, the only document they're going to have is this preliminary assessment. And that's the only document that it seems as if the way the system is set up, the only way projects will be funded are those represented in this document. So if the document is incomplete, then all those other projects will not have the opportunity to receive funding through the money that's going to become available through Reggie or any of the other potential statewide funding, because the first criteria is it on the list in the master plan?
But it's not actually the criteria. So it's not, there are no consequences. It might be nice if they were all on the list, but in fact, like the Reggie funding is not tied to the master plan list. So in some ways it's a good news. It's a little weird, but all you have to do is get enough points in the Reggie or in the CFPF grant manual, they'd still be eligible.
I'm still uncomfortable that they're not, we have this
Yeah.
whole body of work that is not represented in the master plan.
And we don't know that it's not. Let's try to close that gap. Is there anybody from Dewberry or from the TAC that can confirm our concerns that that list that we had developed is not included? Anyone from Dewberry or the
I mean,
TAC?
I think the easiest question is, as Whitney has framed it, if it wasn't entered in the portal, if the survey data was not entered through the portal, is it not on the list? Because I didn't enter it on the portal. You
No,
didn't enter it on
I
the
didn't.
portal. I doubt Dewberry entered it on the portal. So if that's the way, the only way you get on the list, I think it's probably a fair assumption to say it's not on the list.
This is Brian Batten. I'm just listening. I can't, I'd have to, I'm not recollecting the information. I don't know, which doesn't mean we didn't, we get it or not. There's been a lot of things that have water under the bridge in the last few months. If you let me know what specific projects you're referring to or give me the name of one, I can reach out while you're talking here and maybe get an answer as to your question, whether it is or is not in there at present. If you want to drop it in chat, or if there is one specific one you can mention now that I could shoot over to our scientist who's leading that piece of the effort, she can check the database.
Give me 1 second. I'm pulling
One
up the
moment,
document right now. So there were a number of potential capacity building projects for Fort Pickett, Quantico, Fort A.P. Hill, Fort Lee, Naval Support Facility Dahlgren, and then a number of 4 or 5 others. Arlington, Defense Supply Center Richmond, NSA Washington, the Pentagon, and Camp Airy.
All right, let me check, and I'll while y'all talk, I'll see if I can't get a response for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for the question, Kevin. All right, next slide, please, Jeff. And you'll recognize this slide.
There it is.
It's basically our 3 primary avenues towards a locally driven. It says federally funded. I changed it to federally shared for the presentation. Must have lost the translation there. And state supported. Again, that's something I think we came up with together. That is how projects, that is how resilience challenges, whether they're co-located with federal installations or not, should be approached. Locally driven, federally shared, and state supported. The far left block is again DOD's avenues through DOD. So if you are located with a DOD installation, these types of opportunities are available to localities. Army Corps of Engineers is available to everyone, and the bullets beneath the Army Corps of Engineers are the foundational elements that you need to travel in order to gain funding from the Corps of Engineers. And other agencies is thin, and it's because if we were to fill that block out, we'd need about 6 or 7 different slides, which is good news. So federally shared there on those top blocks, and at the bottom, a foundation from the state supported. Advocacy for our localities, matching funds from the state, from sources available, capacity help, recognizing that many localities may not have the capacity to engage in the rest of this framework simply because of their lack of resources. Where can the state help on that? And then governance with a small g, where those difficult decisions need to be made regionally and locally across the framework of the entire state. What is the right level of governance involvement from the state? Where does it best support the locally driven solutions to completion, and where does it best broker resources to make that happen and to develop a network of resilience that covers our coastal ecosystems? Any questions there? Same things we've seen in the past. One thing I did bring up was that the asterisk next to locally driven. I went out of my way to explain that there are 30 installations in the state of Virginia and 26 major DoD installations, military installations. It includes Coast Guard as well. And that 26 of those reside in our area of concern. The map on the left is military installations in Virginia. You can see that 26 of the 30 reside to the east of I-95 and within our area of concern. And the map on the right is Harumph's federal installations map. So if you combine the two of those, and I'm sorry they're not combined, you'll get a good flavor that within Hampton Roads, how much of the footprint is occupied by federal installations, DoD and other federal installations. And again, on the left, it's strictly military installations. Not inconsiderable. And my point was, we have 95 counties and 38 cities in Virginia. When we look at the whole, where the impact and the footprints are concerned, you really need to add another 30 entities to that to get the whole of the picture. Next slide, please, Jeff. Okay. Yeah, and I went back to what I just described. When I gave the brief, I first introduced that asterisk and then moved on and then came back to that framework. This was a find about a week before I made the brief. Thank you to Kevin Du Bois and also a phone call that we had with
Serena Eitler with Stantec.
Thank you, Serena Eitler with Stantec, who has also spent a career with OLDCC, the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation Agency. It came out, it was published in May of this year, and I wish we had had it in May. It really provides a remarkable framework and roadmap, kind of like we're seeking to provide in the master plan. It's an outstanding roadmap, and I'll try to bring a little bit of that up later. But my point to the TAC was we need to incorporate the framework that's in here to give our localities, the state actors, and federal partners visibility on what's available. And I think near finally, a recommendation was to include a roadmap specifically for localities, awareness for the state, and incorporating federal visibility of federal funding opportunities and planning and implementation steps in order that if you were a locality or a region, but a locality specifically, you'd be able to take the information within the roadmap and understand what your next steps should be along the way. And as we discussed today, I think that is our value proposition to the master plan. And I would like to be able to deliver a concise document roadmap for inclusion in the master plan, such that if I am a locality and I'm reading the master plan, I've got the capacity to have somebody actually read that. There is somewhere that gets my attention that says, oh, this should help me figure out where I need to go. If I am a defense community, if I am co-located with a military installation or a federal installation, even if I'm not a defense community, and what my advantages or disadvantages may be in pursuing federal funding opportunities, planning and implementation of future resilient solutions.
That was all we got, Tom. Thank you
Okay.
for that.
And the last slide you see there, if you could go back, Jeff, and I'll
Yeah.
stop. What are the next steps? And the request was to incorporate our input to make what I just said so. And then do so with Dewberry in a manner that complements the master plan. Deconflict is up there, but I'd like to focus on the word harmonize with fellow subcommittees. And I had a talk with the subcommittee chair for finance, who was interested in our brief, and I shared our brief with her. That's Elizabeth Andrews, Dr. Elizabeth Andrews at William & Mary. And also, as we shape up a product, perhaps some refinement of it with a technical lead and graphic support from Dewberry. Clock is ticking. And then I did have a question on the future of the subcommittee. Would we continue on? That's not answered clearly, but as we see there's work to be done, I think there will be opportunity to do that. Whitney, you were there. Anything else? All right, great. Any questions before we step next? Is that helpful before we step next? Okay. And there is no new next slide, right, Jeff?
Correct. We're all good.
Right.
Close out of that. And I got any of those documents, the flow charts, the white paper at the ready if you want me to present any of those.
Okay.
So,
Good.
get out of it.
Let's just go back to that framework slide. Just leave it up there, please.
Oh, okay. Yep. Let's see. That one. Seen that?
Yep.
Okay.
We don't have a quorum. We can't vote. And we don't need to vote. But I want to make sure that we have some degree of consensus or lack thereof as we move forward. This concept, we talked about this concept of locally driven, federally shared, state supported in the past. And I think we had consensus that that's a way to move forward, as well as a primer within the master plan that if I am a locality specifically, this will get my attention on how best to move out with a series of possible entry and exit points for federal funding opportunities, as well as planning and implementation steps. Is there any adjustment to that we want to talk about now? I know there's a lot of work on the back end of that, but is there any adjustment to that deliverable? You want? Good. Anybody online? Are you getting anything online there, Jeff?
No, just double checking right now. Anybody? I don't think I need to unmute anyone, but I will just actually go through the participants and make sure anyone. Let's see. Dylan, anything to add?
No, sir.
Awesome. How about Jason?
Nothing here.
Awesome. And then wanted to also make a late welcome to Matt Jones with the Secretary's Office. Missed him earlier, but thanks for joining us. Anything, Matt, on behalf of Ann, Admiral Phillips?
Nothing to add, no. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Well-
Thank you. Yep. Good.
Yeah. Okay, I want to share my screen.
Let me get out of this. Floor is yours.
Sharing it with us in the room here. And let me get to it. I don't see it.
I'll make it here, just making you presenter just in case you can't do it.
Got it. Share. Boom. Share. Okay, can everyone see the screen at home and abroad?
Bingo.
All right. This is going to be a little bulky, but I'm going to stick with it here. Be bulkier than I thought. All right. Thank you for bearing with me. What I'm trying to show you is the ADC product that I flashed as a slide. And I'm not getting much out of this system to bring it up. So I'll simply deliver the narrative. I think that there is enough in that primer to divine the things that I just talked about as far as that roadmap for our localities. And it goes far beyond what we've been discussing, and it goes far beyond our framework to introduce those other federal opportunities that exist that are not necessarily linked to DOD, Army Corps of Engineers, but reside in other buckets. I regret I can't show it to you now. Maybe it'll come up, but there is a full chapter, chapter 6, that outlines those federal funding opportunities and how to get to them. I believe that could be condensed and delivered as a white paper with a graphic that enables localities to quickly, regardless of their capacity, to quickly understand, hey, what's available here now? And I come with a little bit more passion for this than I did before, because I heard at least once, if not a few times, in the last TAC meeting from Dewberry's results with community outreach, a real lack of understanding at the locality level of what indeed is available to them in the way of federal opportunity. And I'm bearing on that federal share. And I think it would go even further to say, if the federal opportunity is available, what's available on the state side to help the locality, one, find those opportunities, and two, support them with matching funds or like efforts that would allow them to actually achieve the required match for federal funding opportunity or other capacity needs.
Tom, real quick, you were trying to share the Stantec report you just flashed earlier in the PowerPoint.
I was. Do you have the capability to do that better, Jeff?
I'm working on it right now. Keep talking and I'll see if I can get it up here.
There's not enough change at the table for me to keep talking. I'll stop talking for now and encourage some feedback to what I just said, despite the lack of the visual.
So I know a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about developing an outline for what might be a chapter in the master plan that would discuss the work of the subcommittee. So I know I put together a fairly detailed outline, and I don't know if that was shared with the group. It recognized that document and where that document would fit into the overall narrative, but I don't know if there's any value sharing that outline, because I think ultimately, we may not fill out all the pieces by the deadline, but I think we should still agree that this is the information that should be included about federal agencies and the way the federal agencies partner with localities in the state. And if there's more work to be done in subsequent, administrations or next year, still, I don't think we should define the universe by what we can accomplish between now and October 15th. Rather, we
Agreed.
should say, here's what makes sense, and then fill in the pieces we can. And then, it was always intended that this document would be an iterative document and updates would happen and new information would be added. So at least in my mind, it would be best, Dewberry, to have the full suite of what we thought was appropriate information for the master plan, and then we continually fill in the bits.
Agree. And Jeff, did you take the document that you drew up before the last meeting? I know you took Whitney's work and rolled that in, and was Kevin's outline before or after that?
After.
Okay, so the answer to that, Kevin, is no, because that was right before the last brief, right? Right before the TAC.
I sent it to you before the tag.
I know, exactly, yep. So we do need to turn that around, because that turns into a list of recommended items, correct? An outline of recommendations.
Yes, well, it's an outline for the work of this group to be included in the master plan. So for instance, I have it here. So what's the federal partner subcommittee description? What's the purpose? What were the goals? Who were the participants? The list of federal agency programs in a short description. So describing defense communities, and there was a bunch of information that I pulled the document that I thought was relevant to this group. Differentiating planning versus implementation tools. It's a lot that Whitney talked about. Capacity projects versus actual on-the-ground implementation. Installation risk and vulnerability assessments. So the Army has tools that they use to determine risk and vulnerability. The Department of Defense has the Defense Climate Action Tool. Installation encroachment plans, military integrated natural resource management plans, because those have resilience aspects. And of course, the master plan is supposed to prioritize natural resource projects that support resilience. Federal agency guidance and siting in floodplains. How does the Department of Energy interact with all this work? FEMA, the Corps, EPA, local congressional representatives, what's their role? And that was, again, something that was mentioned in that Stantec document. And then what are the implementation tools in defense communities and outside of defense communities? Because again, as Whitney pointed out, right, there are pots of money that are available to all, and then there are some pots of money that are only available to communities that are defense communities. And so you need to discuss both those sources. Because again, if I'm a locality, the first question I need to ask myself is, am I a defense community so I have access to this additional pot of money in addition to all the other stuff that's generally available? So anyway, this goes on and on. The goals of the subcommittee, what were the deliverables, next steps, unrealized lines of efforts, and that would suggest future work to be done by the committee. And one of the specific things that the TAC asked the committees to address was, how is your subcommittee going to continue and in what form? So we should want to address that. So anyway, I put together an outline with all those things. And again, that's not to say that that's what should be in, but I offered that up to the group for their review and feedback.
Yep, and we will send that out. That outline informed the briefs that I gave the TAG. So is this a two-part fleshing that out enough to be informative beyond an outline, so that those questions are answered within the document that would come from that outline and the deliverable I talked about. I'm a locality, where do I go next?
Yeah, I don't know how we do that without doing this. I don't know how
Well,
to tell a locality what to do,
I will tell you, that's how we got there already,
how it got where.
to that locally driven, federally shared state support. I think that supports it.
If I'm in Henrico County, I'm not sure I understand what's going to be in the document that is going to connect the dots for me.
And that's what needs to be delivered for Henrico County.
Right, but I just don't understand between now and October 15th how that's going to be done.
Well, blood, sweat, and tears.
So have you talked about whether or not Dewberry can take chapter 6 and write something if we're done with this, or if we should be trying to hatch something out separately?
I had a chat at the end of that meeting and have not followed up on it, but that help would definitely be welcome.
Well, I mean, if we were doing this on a longer timeline,
No
there would
question.
be more options, but at this point, I'm like, at least we found a resource that's helpful, but I just don't know how much more we can do with this timeline.
Right. I mean, at the TAC, they kept talking about, if you want us to put a placeholder in the document, we'll put a placeholder in the document. So that was kind of what I was thinking, is this outline or whatever the group agreed to could be the placeholder. Some of it we could fill in, who attended the meetings, what was the goal of the subcommittee, that stuff I think we could pretty easily complete. But we've all struggled on how to connect the dots. So I don't think between now and October 15th, we're going to figure that out. So I think as long as we have the framework in the document and say, these are the issues that we think need to be addressed going forward, at least whoever in the next administration might pick this document up knows these are the things we have to accomplish, as opposed to not spelling that out. At least that's my view, is we should spell out all the stuff that needs to be done.
And that outline gives us I think it does.
I'm not saying it does.
I
It's just
think-
my attempt, and, I'm sure there's lots of great additions and insight around the table, so I would welcome all that input to show the collective work of the group. This was just my starting point. I mean, we didn't talk about how the Department of Transportation, fits. How does NOAA as a federal agency, how do they integrate into this effort? NASA
And
Ag.
so we need to be careful not to try to solve the whole of the effort here kind of wraps that in as well. But what I think we've also tried to do is to provide a tangible roadmap. Say it again. If I'm a locality, why do I care to read the master plan? Who's breaking that out? So if we can get something like this in there, I'm going to touch all those local defense communities and say, you really need to read this and pay attention to this section right here. And that's value add, I think.
Oh, yeah, I'm not disputing that at all. I'm just saying, I think there are things we weren't able to accomplish within the time frame, and all I'm advocating is that
Leaving that list.
we identify those things so that, we can continue this work with the support of the next administration.
I agree.
That's all.
I agree. Whitney?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with having a list. This is just a hard process. I've reviewed several chapters and I guess I would agree with Kevin. There are instances where it would have been nice if, at least if they'd said, we know we need to do these things, instead of just having gaps.
Right.
So maybe if that's what you mean, that we cover that, but yeah. So but that's, to me, that's not the hard part. The hard part is whether or not you're going to try to write this primer.
Yeah.
And I'm clear, because I want to do it. I just don't know if I want to do it in this timeline.
Understand.
So
The answer, well, my personal answer is yes. I want to give a run at it. And I know that it's proven hard to do. And I think we're better off now with the document Jeff just flashed up there than we were before, because it just about serves. Jeff, do you have up Kevin's,
Can you see that Word document?
yeah, can you enlarge it?
Yes. How about that?
Yeah, it's much better.
Yeah, my input is after the cut line.
Yeah.
There it is. Sorry. Seeing that now?
Yep.
All right.
So it just reiterates what I just.
Yeah, it sure does. Scroll slowly if there's anything, Kevin, you want to pick out of there.
So like you said, in that document, it lists a lot of the programs. You know, it's a paragraph with 3 or 4 sentences for each of the programs. So that could easily be co-opted, but that's just one piece of the picture. It still doesn't tell you how to, it just says, here are the programs, and here, it doesn't tell you how to go from A to Z.
Right.
And I know I'm DOD, but this committee is larger than DOD. It's federal agencies. As Whitney pointed out, not everybody has to have a compatibility use plan. Not everybody has to have a military installation resilience plan. If you're not a DOD community, you don't necessarily need those things. And there are other sources of federal money in programs that do not require an association with DOD or a cost match with DOD. So as much as I would love this committee to be only about the Department of Defense, I recognize that it's not. And so, the committee's work in the master plan should be more than just.
Yes.
I mean, it's a lot to just take in here in 15 minutes. So I think maybe, and again, I am not proud. So I'm happy that if if this was distributed, everybody take your shot at it, add to it, cross things out you think are not valuable, and love this to be more of a consensus document for the commission.
So your recommendation is to get this out to the subcommittee, ask for feedback.
If the committee thinks it's a good idea, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's my recommendation. I didn't come up with this on my own.
Yeah. To report out. Okay.
is the finance committee doing anything similar?
Yes. They've got, they did, remember the readout that, I think they are, I'm not sure, but the readout that Elizabeth made, I thought, well, there it is. That's what they're going to.
So I got the impression, both from the TAC and just the last meeting that I kind of skimmed over the meeting minutes, is that they were looking, academic is the wrong word, but an exercise in sort of creative financing, capital, green bonds, that sort of thing, and not as much into existing programs, but I could have missed something for sure. There's overlap, but I don't think we're working in towards the same end product and recreating stuff.
I think there is some overlap, and that's,
Yeah.
I think when Tom mentioned that we wanted to, coordinate with other committees to make sure that we're aligned, I think that's what he was referring to. Primarily.
Yep. And we spoke following the meeting, and we've swapped briefs. And I think that we are and can be complementary.
Yes.
I think the work of the finance committee. No, I don't know. Didn't they have a presentation on REPI and other sources of funding? I think they did.
They had the same speaker, I think, that we
Yeah.
had.
Yeah, we brought a speaker. Mhm.
Yeah. We shared. We played nice.
So, yeah, I think we certainly want them to be aware of.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so all those descriptions of the programs, of financial programs may be redundant. That's maybe where Dewberry can help us understand what's in those other chapters. And
Jeff, can you go back to the Stan Tech document?
Sure.
Just go to the table of contents, please.
Yep. Seeing that?
So this is lined up to address local defense communities and walk them through how to get to what we've been describing for almost 6 months. I think it's a great document. It might be even as simple as, hey, let's include this document. I don't know if we need permission for that or not. I'm not sure who owns the document. It might just be ADC. I think they would be eager to let that happen. But you can see through the table of contents, it gives you the who, what, where, why, and then it finishes with the how. But it goes through the planning, goes through good planning processes, and I think up to implementation processes.
Yeah. Implementing.
Chapter 6, identifying federal sources and implementing resilience projects.
but again, it's only for defense communities, not.
Indeed it is. However, if you go to chapter 6, let's skip to that.
Yep. What page is that? That's 39.
You know what, Jeff, if you can go back to where you were, I see what I need to show you. Sorry about that. So federal funding sources, DOD, FEMA, Commerce, Housing and Urban Development, state and community financing tools, bonds, capital improvement planning. It's that, although it's focused on, they've taken our problem set, they applied it, their audience is DOD communities, defense communities, but they expanded it and said, hey, guess what else? The treasure chest doesn't end with OLDCC or REPI. There's more out there you need to know about. So
Do they have the core? That's the only thing that.
they don't have the core,
Seems to be
Whitney, and yeah, that's the only thing that I didn't notice that was in there. But I think that is another element that we need to make sure that localities understand how to walk. I think it was designed by somebody who already understood the land, who does certainly understand the landscape very well, and said, other than the core and that process, what else is available right here at
You
hand?
mentioned brick.
It goes
Yeah,
in,
but brick is FEMA.
yep, under the FEMA header,
I
I
know all that.
believe. I believe under the FEMA header, it does go into brick. It's got to, because it was published in May. Do a quick word search. Yeah, you're doing it.
There it is.
Bam. They've got tables. It's got a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's really a remarkable document.
Good document, yeah.
And that might be, we might have an easy path. Well, correction. I'm sorry I said that.
Yeah, HUD.
Have a lighter path than we thought if we apply this.
No, I totally agree. I think this is a really valuable resource
It's got to get out there.
and something that could be proper journalistic norms are flaws. There's no real.
I agree.
But it's a partial solution.
Whitney?
I mean, I think it's a great resource, and finding it is and trying to make more people aware of it is great. I still think there's always been lots of good resources that no one reads. So I guess the question is, do we want to write this primer? Or do we want to just make a couple recommendations? Because, yeah, I mean, pointing people to a resource is helpful, but that.
Could the problem be solved as easy? I think the problem. We've been working on this problem. What is it? But the problem is that localities don't know where to go. They don't have the first, depending, it's locality to locality. Let's just say generally speaking.
They say they don't know where to go because they haven't looked.
Well, or they don't have the capacity to look, or they haven't had the drive to look because the threat is not as close at hand as it was 5 years ago, for whatever reason. If I want to go look, what's my first best resource? Could and should be, even if I'm not a DoD community, it's broad enough.
The interesting thing is this was published in May and none of us knew about it.
Yeah.
So
So that highlights the gap. I mean, you should have heard Kevin's response. Why don't I know about this?
been all my life, Stantec.
Yeah.
Why did it pop up in my Facebook news feed? Come on. This should be people sharing it.
Perhaps that the solution for the immediate problem, the 3-meter problem here is getting this to the users who need it. Certainly not recreating the wheel, but making sure they have access and knowledge that this exists and they are able to use it to start their process.
I mean, I agree, but I think Whitney's question, and I think I agree with her as well, is that we have a work product that we have to deliver in a very short period of time. Something, we're trying to figure out what that is. But I think ultimately the goal is to develop a primer because that is the thing that is going to help localities. So I think we have a short-term goal, which is what we need to accomplish for this first iteration of the coastal master plan. And then there is the long-term goal, which is the most useful thing, which is the primer. So that I can walk in not knowing much and go, okay, step 1 is this, step 2 is this. And that, we kind of talked about that with those tables, right? If I am in search of this kind of project, what funds are available, who initiates, how much money is available, what are the preconditions, right? Those are the kinds of questions you want to answer for them so they can, start down that path and know that if I follow these steps, I get at least my application in for funding, right? I think that is the specific level of information that currently does not exist. And that's what localities that are undersourced and undercapacitized, I just made that word up. That's what they need, right? Because they don't have the capacity to do the in-depth research I mean, look at how long it took us to try to figure it out. And we're a group of professionals, 20, 30. If you're a county with 1 or 2 people and this is not your day job, how are we going to expect them to figure it out? They're not. So again, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and it's certainly not going to be immediate, but I think the long-term goal is to develop, the most useful thing would be to develop that primer.
I agree.
have a couple thoughts.
Tom?
So I think the primer is a good idea, and I think we can develop the best primer in the world, but we always run the risk of what you're saying is
Shelf.
it goes on a shelf, and this might be out of the scope of this particular group, but developing a really good primer, but also following it up with continued communication and education, because you're talking about local communities who don't nearly have maybe the substantive knowledge we have. It takes us a while to discuss these issues. They're starting from scratch. They'll look at a primer, which we think is awesome, but they're going to look at it and be like, is this in English? And, what do we do with this? I think it has to be a comprehensive campaign of education, encouragement, and hand-holding, which takes a lot of capacity on this end. But I think for it to be effective, it has to be a combination of things to make it work.
And who would that reside with?
Yeah.
I think it resides with the state.
I mean,
That's the advocacy portion.
But I think it's a state, to me, it's a state, but, there's a lot of different stakeholders and partners within these documents that need to work hand in hand with the states to have these conversations.
Yes, but I agree. And it's dangerous to say I think it resides right there, because really it's a matrix thing. Where does it reside? It resides at all levels. But relative to closing that gap and somebody keeping their eye on the ball of the campaign all of the time, it's federally shared, it's state supported. So where does that buck stop? If the primer is developed and it does become shelfware, where could we have first stepped into that and made sure that it's not shelfware and continue to make it visible at the local level where there's not the capacity to break that out, there's not capacity to remind? I think.
so there's the raft process, right?
Yeah.
So that's a multi-year hand-holding exercise to help communities understand their vulnerabilities and to develop a plan to address those vulnerabilities. So I keep thinking about that as a model, and the ag extension agent, right? What does an ag extension agent do? It goes to the individual farmer and say, tell me what your needs are. And then they say, okay, here are the suite of programs that are available to help you. So maybe to your point that we don't just develop a primer, but then there needs to be a statewide force that's available to go out and handhold, provide that level of capacity and handhold communities and say, okay, what are your needs? Okay, so you need to do X, Y, and Z. So here are the programs that bring to bear. Here's the process based on this primer that we have. Let's work through it together, right? And so it's not just a book on a shelf, but it's actually a program with people developing relationships and working through the process together. And that I agree. I think that would be led by the state.
Are you ready for public comments here?
Yeah.
Okay. Couldn't tell which number we were. Okay, so I've done a lot of climate change adaptation and resilience planning, but for the Marine Corps, and one of the projects at Paris Island won the Department of Navy Sustainability Award. So anyway, just to kind of let you know, I do have some experience in this. And with regards to prioritizing communities that need hand-holding, and that is absolutely right. You mentioned modeling, or, well, the DCAT program, she would call it, the DCAT resource online. But there's also, and I need to talk to Kevin about this first, there's also a larger effort to do sea level rise modeling in a more precise way on a bigger scale. And I need to share that with you because you probably don't know about it.
Nope.
See, that's okay. And that can also, like, looking at who's most vulnerable first, you know, setting some priorities, because you can't help everybody immediately.
Right.
And so that's one thing. Got a couple others, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. And Kevin's in the environmental business line where I used to be. I'm now in the planning business line for NAVFAC. So I'm an environmental planner. And in the installation development plan, installation master plan, UFC, as the, there is a new requirement as of 1 year ago for an installation climate resilience plan to be in every installation master plan. That's new. There's a lot of debate about, okay, what is that going to look like? But this big modeling effort, which I will talk to you about, provides the baseline for, because that's your constraints map. That's your constraints mapping. And it's also important because you've got to use that when you're working with milcons. If that milcon is in a flood prone area or tidally influenced, you get your design flood elevations from that. Okay. And also there's a new portion of this that requires collaboration with the community on what are they doing and how does it relate to what you're doing. So that is built into this requirement, which I can send you.
Yes, please.
And yeah.
That's new as of January, right? I mean,
No, actually the UFC was updated September 20.
Wow.
So 1 year ago.
Yeah.
But for example, the Paris Island plan, we were finalizing that, or actually really had finalized it right at that time. And so what we were using was the NAVFAC Climate Change Adaptation Resilience Handbook, which did not require that community interface. And we didn't have much of it except, okay, then my second project was Air Station Beaufort down there in South Carolina. And so the land between that is managed by the Low County Council of Governments. So that is mainly Beaufort County, but also other counties that surround those two installations. They got a $500,000 OLDCC grant to do planning for resilience around both of those installations. So that's happening despite the fact that we didn't write that into the master plan. It's happening because they got that grant and they were forward leaning, and
right.
So
somebody
right
drew out a back of the envelope roadmap for them and said, hey, this is how you get to that federal funding opportunity.
Well, they're working, yeah, and they knew somebody who knew somebody.
Yeah.
Knew how to apply for that, and they got that.
Right.
So, but that's the best example I know of. And there's also up in Annapolis, they did 3D modeling up there, and that's even more precise. It's very precise. So one of my recommendations here is that I'm talking about the future of the subcommittee. In addition to the environmental business line, you should have somebody from the planning business line. And obviously the Navy does not, this is not all about the Navy, like Kevin said.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though, we act like it is, but you've got so many Navy installations. here, if you don't, make it kind of front and center in some way, it's not gonna happen.
Right.
So,
And just so you know, my participation was only through Admiral Rock. He is the one who Admiral Phillips reached out to and said, who do you want to participate? And that's how Joe Howell from the CIPLA's office
right,
was appointed to the TAC, and
okay, so
I
you're
was-
both on the TAC or just
Joe.
Joe?
And
Okay,
I was appointed to this subcommittee and the project prioritization.
right, okay, got it. Yeah, really coming in this, obviously very late,
It's all right. We're
Um,
glad you're here.
but, okay, so Joe Howell, last I heard, he was really the Naval Station Norfolk CPLO. Is he now in a regional office?
My understanding is in the region.
Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. He's a landscaper. Okay.
The Admiral tapped him.
Yeah.
Not for me to
okay.
say anything, then, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Student, back to the DCAT. Is the
DCAT.
DCAT, sorry.
Yeah.
Defense
Are those, right, are those assessments, if I am Smithtown adjacent to federal installation, a DoD installation X, can I use that tool?
Well, the DCAT is a very broad brush. That's why this,
That's why,
Yeah,
the
that's
next
why-
one you,
No, I don't think anybody in the public has access.
I can't get on there and
No.
start using it.
but I think it's related to, some of the work that NOAA has online. So, and I haven't really looked at it much because I've been using the other one, which is more precise.
The vulnerability analysis doesn't stop at the fence line. So when we were given the presentation, they used Oceana as an example, and they said, okay, here's how all these viewers and these modules display, and you could see the vulnerability outside the fence line of Oceana. So, but I don't know how far outside it goes. I don't know what the parameters are, but it's not, the analysis doesn't stop at the fence line. But like I said, it's a DoD tool, and it's not generally, it's CAC enabled. It's not generally available.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
DCAT is CAC enabled, and the DURSL is CAC enabled. Anyway, we should look at that.
I mean, I just got information yesterday on how to get access to it, because we have been asking, how do we even know if an installation has had?
Yeah, right.
And
That's a good
now-
question. It was kind of a new thing for us.
So now, apparently, yesterday, we got the instructions on how to access that, and you only have authority view only, but I could go in and view the DCAT analysis for the installations that have had it done. But I have not had time since I got the email to actually play around with it. I don't get much time to play.
How old is the DCAT? How long has it been around?
Not long,
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's pretty new.
maybe a
right?
year, and they were beta testing it for a while.
Right.
But as we talked about in the last meeting, every installation in the CONUS is supposed to have a completed DCAT analysis by summer 2022.
Right.
Yeah. So we really need to collaborate because the DURSL one is precise in that. That's, I don't know what all I can say about it, but,
To your point, Susan, though, is that the awareness, there is a gap of awareness of,
right.
particularly with, you mentioned that one case study where the locality was fortunate enough to have someone to say, you need to look here, here, and here. And guess what? There's the money you need downstream here if you meet these requirements as you go and make these relationships
Right.
and deliver this grant
Yeah.
proposal. And
And it's also not a given that just because, human nature being what it is, they're working more closely with one of the installations than the other. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
But it's,
And you go back to why is that? And I think a lot of the why is that, well, it's on, I'll use both sides, and I don't mean this to be an adversarial relationship or anything, but depending on the energy that's happening within the installation,
Right.
But where these dollars are concerned, the energy that's happening in cooperation at the local level with the installation is a real tipper. That it might happen, it won't happen one without the other. But I think what we're trying to strengthen here is that awareness, whether it is OLDCC money or it's HUD money, that the locality first steps in and says, how do I get there? Because I can't get there by myself. And if you're adjacent to an installation, that is a great path. But if somebody doesn't show it to you, you're never going to find it. How do we send that awareness up so that it becomes intuitive?
Yeah, and then in Virginia, I mean, using, hopefully this type of initiative really has some power going forward. We don't know, but that, using Harumpa and all the different to show that it's a priority, because if there's no attention given to it and it's just sort of an internal installation thing, and that will vary. Some installations it will just fall off, but if there's some kind of reporting mechanism or briefing where,
So this report was done. This report was done for the Association of Defense Communities, and that is that's a representative, pretty powerful representative body that has grown over time and influence and size. And they commissioned this report that we're finding is, my goodness, they've done a good job of bringing it together. They're another avenue of awareness for the localities. If the localities
Just send me an email and I'll
yeah,
send it to you.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
you're gonna like it, I think.
Yeah, and so somebody in Virginia commissioned that Stantec.
I don't know the derivation. I don't know the origin.
I mean,
of it.
she worked for.
It's like the association.
She worked for
It's
OLDCC.
like the Association of Defense
I think she
Communities, which was actually the precursor to OLCC.
Yes.
Right.
It was a loose group of people. I forget, there was some catastrophic event, and
That
federal
is
agency
the
said,
AA.
why are we not more coordinated to be able to address these situations? And then that finally actually morphed into Old CC.
So, Tom, I don't know what your role is outside of the subcommittee as far as like a state rep that could reach out to localities that host defense installations and say, hey, have you started down this path?
So I'll answer your question. That is my job.
So
I
mean,
I have a double-edged pursuit on this.
just think like, I feel like we're making this, given our timeline, harder than maybe it should be, because we could have that recommendation to try to encourage localities that have a DoD installation to look at these options, right? And we have a person who actually could do that
For the next 3 months.
Well, I'll tell you too.
forever. This is a permanent position.
Well-
He's appointed.
Yeah, okay, sorry, that part.
Regardless,
Yeah, that
Okay.
part.
But somebody will be there.
we
So
think
sorry.
we think,
Maybe
maybe not, but let me just,
priorities.
that is let me just answer a little clearly. That's a portion of my job, but probably one of the most important things is to make sure that the localities do have visibility on opportunities like this. However, it needs to be more, if it resides at one person in the department, under the Secretary of Veterans and Defense Affairs, that's good. But who is my partner in the other secretariats? Who's my partner at Natural Resources? This whole plan is going to be handed off to another secretariat. Who is that partner? Where are those? Where is that resilience network being built at the other?
I mean, so the PDC, we are working on legislative proposal for state structure.
Mhm.
But I kind of feel like that's just outside of this master plan effort. So I don't know how to, I feel like it's sort of like trying to keep this to what can we do in the next 3 weeks? Right? Because I mean, I get you ideally, yes, you would tie into a bigger framework, right?
Yeah,
But are we trying to fix that?
no,
Okay.
I just, here's
I'm
what
not
I'd like.
just,
I'd like a really simple,
but I'm saying that's a clear recommendation that like,
yes, yeah.
you know, that we approach all localities that host a DoD installation with this opportunity, starting with your office, realizing that there needs to be more staff and coordination to make that.
Well, yeah.
No,
I mean, if you go back.
not
to-
more staff where I'm concerned, but there needs to be supporting
Yeah.
staff on the other end who have daily, who have direct impact on the solutions, on the resilience solutions. So where I have an avenue towards OLDCC and other federal funding opportunities, not solving the problem of resilience in the Secretary of Veterans and Defense
Right.
Affairs.
Well, I mean, I just think you could write a recommendation that would capture that concept.
Yeah.
It's not,
No, it's
it's at least the
should
direction.
be simple.
And I think,
I don't know if you remember, but 4 months ago, one of the recommendations that we came up with is every single military installation should have a cup or a mirror,
Yes.
right? I mean,
well, I would say that is a recommendation, and then the other one is every single locality should pursue being part of a Army Corps, you know, what do you want to call it?
vulnerability assessment.
Yeah. Because
Feasibility stuff. Yeah,
both of those things
two different
are the
tracks.
first step into a bigger pot of money. And if that's all your takeaway was, is do those two things, or do one of those things if you don't have a DoD installation. That would be fine
That's
as far
good.
as recommendations. And then we could tell people we have this resource, and we have a list of, you know, of more things to do, but just those two recommendations,
Those are good.
I think those are
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I hear somebody. Yeah.
Nope. I agree with y'all, and I'm happy to work with Tom to polish up things and circulate them as necessary. So I'm here as a staff resource, but I think that's committing to those things and standing behind them it's a good thing to have, as opposed to trying to write a report that we don't know who's going to see. Anything else, any documents y'all would like me to share? We got a couple minutes left until public comment at 2:50, but we've already heard, thanks, Susan. So it's really not it's a free flowing discussion. So continue to talk as necessary.
Yeah, the only thing I'll bring up for the benefit of the group is that the REPI Challenge RFP hit the street. It went from, in past years, being anywhere from $5 to $15 million available to $40 million available, and 25 million of that 40 million is specifically earmarked for climate resilience projects.
And that's a change. And most of the coast of North Carolina is not a refuge.
Right. Very little here.
But this is a little slightly different. REPI Challenge is a little bit different for just REPI money. It's a separate bucket, and it's for a specific purpose. Where it's REPI, right, you have 17 different encroachment things that you look at. That, of that 40 million, 25 million is just solely for climate resilience, ignoring the other encroachment.
Factors.
So 15 million, which is what it used to be, is still available for encroachment issues. So basically, it's a $25 million plus up for, specifically for climate resilience. So I just know in my world, everybody's scrambling. now because the pre-proposals are due November 22nd. Everybody's like, okay, what, we need to submit for this money. And actually, we don't submit for the money.
Localities.
Localities submit for the money. So this is the perfect example of having the localities know, hey, you want access to $25 million, you have to put in a pre-proposal by November 22nd.
But if they can collaborate with the installations.
They have to.
Technical.
If they don't, they won't get through the pre-proposal. They don't have a commitment from a military installation.
Right, right.
You have to have, yeah.
Mhm.
There's goodness there.
Yeah, so don't quote me, but the loose timetable is submission of pre-proposals November 22nd. There's review and then a selection of the final applications to go full application submission. I think that happens in March. Those are due by March. And then they make a decision. Sometime over summer.
Yeah, and last I heard, there was still OLDCC money, grant money available. I tried to get some money from Cherry Point to apply for it, and they.
I'm not surprised because again, I think people don't know how to connect the dots, so money's getting left on the table.
Yeah.
Right on. It's happening all the time.
I mean, one of the things that we talked about, we have a group that we meet with quarterly called the Chesapeake Bay Action Team, which is made up of folks from all the different installations in the watershed, all services. And one of our members, it was interesting, suggested that we have a Chesapeake Bay Regional REPI work group, which was actually advocated for in the Virginia statewide JLUS in 2017. But it hasn't happened. We brought it up to CBAT. We thought it would be a great way. It's like, look, let's figure out, let's become more expert at how to access those dollars for the installations within our region. We got crickets. No one even said, we think that's a great idea.
Right.
And it's, you don't know what you don't know, right? The ones, we have 13 installations that have gotten REPI money and they continue to get REPI money because they know how to do it.
Right.
Right.
And the rest of them get nothing.
And they have a column nominating
Partner.
Yorktown's doing great because they share space with Mary.
I don't know if I told you,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I got a phone call late last week from the Nature Conservancy saying, hey, we're going to go up and have a meeting with Dahlgren about a REPI challenge proposal. And I'm like, why the heck am I not invited to that thing?
Right.
And they're like, well, we're just going to kick ideas around. I'm like, well, I could probably help you with that. So anyway, it's still, the lines of communication are still, I think, very disjointed.
The dots are not in place.
That's
Jeff, what do we have for due outs here?
We're good. I mean, it's 2:50, so public comments, we've already heard from the great folks in the audience here, in addition to our subcommittee members. Anything else? I mean, I'll just call off folks here real quick. Matt, anything from you or any ideas pop up?
I don't have anything to add. No, thanks.
Cool. I think who else? Dylan, your subcommittee member. Anyone else want to pipe up?
No, I'm good, Jeff. Thank you.
Great. Jason?
Nothing here. Thanks, guys.
Well, that's all we got. I guess anyone else? Emily, actually, on the line. I can unmute you here.
No, nothing from me.
Great, thank you. Well, that's really the public comment. I think we talked about a couple of next steps. I don't think we'll have another subcommittee meeting within the time frame of when things are due for the master plan and the TAC. I think everyone will get the word via the Secretary's office and Dewberry about when that actual TAC meeting will occur in first week or second week of October, I believe. And we will get to work on some of these recommendations. I think we might have a couple of calls, just Tom and I, Whitney and I, just a small group that wouldn't do any FOIA tripwires or anything like that, to just kind of get some of these products refined and get them out to folks, the subcommittee to review. Anything, Tom, you wanted to add on that for next steps?
Yeah, on those next steps, do you have, we talked about the outline. In the balance still as the primer, but we all see the value to that. Whether or not we can get it done in the stretch is questionable. And there's one more that I thought was valuable.
Did you want me to bring that document up, or just from what we've said in the past couple of minutes here as recommendations? There's 3.
What's the other? Oh, Whitney's. Those
Yeah,
two
Whitney's 3, Whitney and Kevin's 3. Yeah.
points. What are those 2 points? I don't know.
So localities should all, or we should be able to approach localities through potentially your office, Tom, but have partners at the local or PDC level to educate folks in this process going forward. And then Kevin's recommendation earlier that he reiterated was every installation should have CUP. Yep. And then Whitney also said every locality should work on a risk assessment as applicable with the Army Corps. So
those were the 2 primary ones, but the third
Yep.
one, add that one as well, please.
Yep. So thoughts, folks, on should we push for a graphic that reflects these things, or given that we've not quite got it right through previous renditions? I mean, do we think that if we present these things as is to Dewberry, that we should still push for assistance on sort of the graphic design front to have a exhibit? Or what are the thoughts there? Are they doing more text or more connecting the dots outline format? Which we don't have to answer today, but that's where I'm kind of seeing the format going.
Exhibit would be most effective.
I think it would be helpful if you sent out just to the group, the outline, the larger outline, and then that list of draft recommendations for then reviewing it by the committee. And then there's probably, we'll have to trust that you encapsulate the comments. I mean, give a deadline that meets the schedule, and then we'll have to trust that you reflect those. I know me personally, I'm going to be out the first week of October, so.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. And fortunately, the sound was phenomenal here, so we have the recording. So I will be sure to work with Emily Sokol with Dewberry to capture everything we've discussed. And thank goodness you have electricity and it's not 80 degrees in there. So you're quite a resilient group last meeting.
Great.
Yeah, that's all I got, Tom.
We got public comments. Did we do that? We're good there?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. Whitney, thank you very much for making this space available and for all your input as the co-chair. Susan, thanks for joining us today. Very, very valuable. Tom, always. Thanks. Kevin, thanks for being an ever catalyst. Appreciate it. Everyone else who's joined us online, thank you very much for joining us today. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Tom, this is Brian Batten. I just wanted to follow up to Kevin's question before we adjourn.
Yeah.
If I can, yeah. Sorry to interrupt there. I was trying to get a moment in. Tom, it does not appear that those projects are in the capacity building database. So I do not, neither myself, or the person that's been managing that effort have any email from you with those. So do you know if you submitted those to us or to the state?
I submitted them through the TAC, and I'll follow up with you
Through
on
the
that.
TAC. All right, it seems like we did not get those, so we just please follow up and we'll see, what the status of that is.
Will do.
Where it got lost, yeah. All right.
Thanks, Brian, very much. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Seconded, even though we.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. So, Tom, are you going to send the outline and?
Yeah.
That other presentation or the document? The document?
Yes, by all means, the document. I think I'm going to send that document.
It's called
but you'll
Advancing
pay attention
Resilience
to
in
it.
Military Communities. I think that's what it's called. But
Count on it.
it's really good.
It is. It's remarkable. I think that alone is going to be a good find.
Thanks, everyone.
Likewise, Tom. Thank you. Jeff, Rob,
Yes.
thanks, man.
Thank you. I'm going to end it right now. And yeah, feel free to give me a shout tomorrow and we can touch base as necessary
We'll do.
on these things. All right. Safe travels. Thanks again.
Ciao.
So Kevin, I'll